I don't really feel motivated to play Duel Links right now, as you can probably tell from the video I made like half a month ago, which still is true. I've talked about how, Heroes is just not fun to play against. Super Poly is annoying. Spamming big guys for absolutely free is annoying. And well, there's another deck in the tier 1 meta right now, Salads, which is also annoying in its own right, with a deck that has 100% consistency and just has a crazy grind game. Even with the new Crystron support, I'm definitely glad to have new Crystron support. That should be in the game like 2 years ago. But, Crystrons are still not good. It doesn't really solve any of the issues of Crystrons currently. It still loses to the exact same things. It only makes it have a slightly better turn 1 board with, Quandax being able to make any synchro and not just machine synchros, but it's still Crystrons. We still don't have any of the new TCG stuff. We don't have any new broken skills. That's why I still don't really feel that motivated, even with the new support, to play a lot of Duel Links and test this deck out. But with that said, the new KC Cup is around the corner. I mean, it is right now. It's going on right now, and what better time than now to test Crystrons with the new stuff. So here it is, the deck that I have been cooking for the past like 2 weeks. Unsurprisingly, we're using the best skill ever given from Konami to basically every single rogue deck in the game, which is going to be the Flur skill. We're unsurprisingly playing free purple Flur, free orange Flur, and 2 Necrosynchron, which is pretty standard. But you can see that we are playing a bit differently for the level 1 plant monsters. We're playing 3 glow-up bulbs instead of the usual 1 copy, and we're playing 1 copy of Spore as well. And the reason we're playing triple glow bulb is that it's not a bad card to draw. We kind of want to have it in our hand because, if we don't need our normal summon, you can just normal summon this guy. It's a level 1 tuner. You can use it as synchro material, you can use it as link material. If you have a level 8 Flur in your field, you can use your skill to get a Necrosynchron, make your level 8 turn it into level 6, and then have the level 1 glow up bulb on your field, and that's a free Korin Gandrax because it's 6+2+1. And if you have your normal summon used on something like a Scrap Recycler, you can use the glow up bulb from your hand as a discard fodder for your nightmares, as you can see that we are playing in the extra deck. So it's pretty good. It just gives you 3 bodies, and the mill 1 is occasionally useful if you hit something like a Fist Burn, for example. And the Spore is just so that if we draw the glow up bulb, we still have a good target for us to summon with the Necrosynchron, so that when we use Spore as a synchro or link material, we can bring it back, because it also has an effect that brings itself back, just like glow up bulb, but it changes its level, which is slightly less useful than glow up bulb, but it's pretty much the same thing. You can basically treat them as the same card. For the Crystrons, we're playing pretty much the standard ratio: 3 Self-Near, 3 Fistburn, 1 Versnix, 1 Turtle. We're playing 1 Smiger and 1 Trap, because there isn't really much space to play more than that for Smiger and the Trap. We're playing 1 Citri, 1 Ryon. We don't really need too many tuners because we have a consistent access to tuners anyway from Necrosynchron and Glow Up Bulb, so one of each Crystron tuner is good enough. And we're playing Small World, a card that is from the most recent selection box. It's a pretty good card. I play this card a lot in the TCG because I'm a Valence player, and we need tons of ways to search Shinonome, and Small World is probably one of the best ways. Small World is a very interesting card. It basically searches any monster in the game, provided that you build your deck accordingly. It's a bit complicated to explain verbally, but basically you can reveal a card from your hand and then banish it face down and then banish a bridge. and then search a third monster that shares a attack or defense stat or a level stat or a attribute or type stat. So to put it simply, it trades one monster from your hand to any monster that you want, provided that you build your deck according to the restrictions. And our main small world bridge is actually Necrosynchron, which people already usually play 2 copies just so that if you draw one of them, you still can use your skill to summon the other one from the deck. And in this case, it also acts as a small world bridge because it is a dark attribute machine monster. Well, the Purple Flur is a really good monster. I'm sure if you played against this deck or you played with this deck, you know that this card is absolutely busted, especially when you go second. If you go second and the skill gives you a free level 1 guy for you to pop, and then the first thing you do is to activate this effect, you force out a lot of interruption because this card pops 1 on summon, and then the level 1 when popped gets you to the other level A, which gets you another monster for free from your opponent's graveyard, and then you can overlay for a Dingirsu to send something from your opponent's field to the graveyard, which we are playing a copy of, and or you can make a copy of the Fleur Synchro, which is a spell trap negate. And then that triggers your Necrosynchron, gets you another guy for free, you can link it off for Nightmare Phoenix, and make Unicorn, blah blah blah. That's all from one single monster. So yeah, this card is absolutely busted, and having another way to search it is just really good. This allows you to turn any machine monsters, bridging through Necrosynchron to grab your Purple Fleur, or if you open with the Fleur cards, you can bridge through the Necrosynchron to grab a machine starter, something like a Scrap Recycler or a Crystron Self-Near. So yeah, really phenomenal card, and I really like it a lot in this deck. It's arguably even better than something like a Forbidden Droplet in this deck specifically because of how good the Purple Fleur monster is. For the extra deck, we're playing 5 Synchro monsters, 1 Xyz, and 3 Links. The links are extremely important in this deck, specifically because of how easy it is to spam link material thanks to Necrosynchron and Glow Up Bulb. Nightmare Phoenix and Unicorn are, well, really good link monsters, as you could probably already tell. And the discard cost is barely even a cost because a lot of your Crystron cards want to be in the graveyard anyway. If you draw Self-Near, you want to discard it because it is functionally exactly the same if it's in your hand or in the graveyard. You know, if you draw a Glow Up Bulb, you want to discard it so that you can summon it with its own effect. You can search something like a Rose Nyx, discard it, and then use it as a graveyard effect to get yourself a token, and then you can link the token away. You know, Crystron's, despite being a Synchro archetype, is pretty good at link summoning as well. And we have, you know, the good old Crystron boss monsters, the secret boss monster of the archetype, Rasta Liger, as I have been playing since, like, late 2023. This card is pretty good at OTKing, even with the release of Unchained Abomination, which is usually a better link for than Rasta Liger. I still think it's good to play Rasta Liger just because, first of all, one copy of Rasta Liger itself is lethal because it gets up to 4,200 attack, and also you can also use its effect during the main phase to pop another card by tributing something. And this deck has more than enough ways to put monsters on the field to for it to use this effect to destroy something before you enter the battle phase. For the Synchros, we have the Quandax, which allows us to make a Black Rose Dragon during our opponent's turn, a pretty good interruption, but realistically, if you're playing against something like a hero deck, they can play through that pretty easily, so instead you're probably just going to make a powered Insectron and stall for 1 turn so that you can try to OTK the turn afterwards. The Flow Synchro is obviously very good, easy to make, and threatens, it checks one of your opponent's back row by just negating a spell trap your opponent activates during your turn, and Quarian Gandrax is just pretty easy to make thanks to the free Necrosynchron that you get from your skill. And yeah, that's pretty much it. The deck actually prefers going second more than it does going first. That's because the way I built this deck. If you go first, the game plan is to either, make the Black Rose Dragon to blow up your opponent's board, or to make the Powered Zekrom to stall. And then turn 2, you just get access to all the broken Flur stuff to threaten interruption, and then just a Link Climb, make the Nightmares, threaten your opponent's back row, and then just make a Raster Liger and attack full game. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's have a look at some replays from the KC Cup. I feel like KC Cup Stage 1 is less competitive than in Legend Rank pretty much every single season. So it's a pretty good opportunity for me to be testing less competitive decks like Crystron's. Our opponent's playing Cosmo, and we're going first, so let's see what we can do. We did draw the Citri, which is not ideal. That means we can't go for a usual Citri plus Recycler line that gets us access to a Black Rose Dragon during our opponent's turn. Instead, we have to make the Quandax preemptively during our own turn, so that we can make a Black Rose Dragon during our opponent's turn. Our opponent will lead a Cosmo Dark Destroyer, which threatens the Quandax. That's completely fine. We'll let them destroy it, because that allows us to revive a Ryan from the graveyard. Because we made the Quandax during our own turn by a normal Synchro Summon, the tuner ends up in our graveyard, which means we can special summon it when the Synchro gets destroyed. Our opponent will try to attack our monster, we'll make a Powered Zekrom, it survives till our next turn, and this is one of the really great things about Crystron's playing Powered Zekrom, because if the Powered Zekrom survives till the next turn, we can immediately threaten a Synchro. It can either be a Flur Synchro, like what we did just then, and then immediately negate one of our opponent's back row, or we can immediately make a Black Rose Dragon, which blows up everything. And since our opponent only has one back row, we'll make the Flur Synchro, which also triggers the effect of the Necro Synchron, which gives us more link material. We can use it to make a Nightmare Phoenix, popping our opponent's back row. Our opponent will chain Ice Dragon's Prison, we'll negate with the Flur Synchro. And the reason why we still want to pop the back row despite having the Spell Trap negate is that we actually want to use the Synchro as a Xyz material, so that before we use it for the Dingirsu, we want to get rid of the opponent's back row, so that when we make the Dingirsu, they can't, activate the Spell Trap. And Dingirsu is a pretty good out to the Dark Destroyer, doesn't destroy, doesn't target, and then we have Lethal on board, so our opponent will scoop. Okay, let's actually look at what we do against meta decks. We play against Hero, unsurprisingly. You probably expect playing a lot of heroes in the KC Cup, both in Stage 1 and Stage 2. Our opponent will lead a Stratos, which is pretty good. And the Necrogana in the graveyard is going to be annoying, because this deck is really good at OTKing, but it's really good at OTKing once. If the OTK fails, it's going to be pretty rough because of how we built the extra deck. We actually have a bit less of a grind game compared to a normal, pure synchro-based Crystron deck. So we're aiming to end the game on turn 2 and OTK as quickly as possible. But thankfully, because of the Necrogana being in the graveyard, we can actually banish it with the Korin Gandrax, which can remove it from the graveyard. I'm gonna lead with a Self-Ethmere. I was originally intended to pop the level 1 using the Self-Ethmere effect, but they used the Arm Dragon to pop it, so we don't need to pop it ourselves. We're gonna make the Phoenix to start to threaten our opponent's back row, now that, the only monster interruption is out of the equation. We'll start to get rid of his back row. We'll make a Dingirsu, forcing him to use any back row before we make the Dingirsu, if he has anything. But, it's a super poly. He doesn't have anything in his hand left, so he can't even use it. We'll just send it to the graveyard just for, just to make sure that we don't get sacked. We're gonna make a Unicorn and start bouncing stuff back. We're gonna bounce back to Kluger, and because of how hidden information zones work, If it gets sent to the extra deck, it doesn't trigger the floating effect to summon the Wise Man. So that's why that is our top priority, to bounce back to the extra deck. As you can see, we're playing Unchained Abomination in this version because I am testing out different extra deck monsters. I eventually ended up playing Rastaliger. I think it's a bit better, but Unchained Abomination is still not bad. We can use the Abomination to clear our opponent's monsters. Our opponent can't really beat over our things because of the Dingusu protection, and then during the next turn we can just attack and win the game. In this replay, again, we're playing against a hero player, and we're going second, which is actually preferred, as I talked about in the deck breakdown. We drew 2 small worlds, which is, not ideal, but because of how the skill lets us shuffle a card back from our hand to the deck, it's not too bad, I guess, but the Citri is not good either. Our opponent once again leads a Stratos, and then activates the broken yellow button and adds a bunch of cards to your hand. Another good thing about playing Crystron's this format is that your monsters are water, so your opponent, if they're playing heroes, they can't actually super poly your monsters away because they don't have a water hero fusion that uses a water monster as material, because Absolute Zero is not in the game currently. We're going to start our turn by using a small world. The Self of Neutral is pretty good. We're gonna banish the orange Flur to grab a purple Flur, and the purple Flur is just the best card ever. We can immediately threaten the Super Poly. They can't even activate it because after the skill quote-unquote nerf, the monster that we get from the draw phase is actually summoned face down, so they can't even Super Poly it away. That gets us a free level 8 as well. We can make a Nightmare Phoenix, pop our opponent's remaining back row. It's a Miracle Fusion. It doesn't really do anything, but it's just gives us a peace of mind that we don't have to worry about any more interruptions for the rest of the turn. We're gonna Synchro Summon a Crystron Quarian Gandrax by making our monster level 6 from our skill. We're gonna banish the Kite away from our opponent's graveyard because, as I said in the last game, we really want to OTK as quickly as possible, so banishing the Kite Roid will massively help. We'll spin back to Kluger so that it doesn't activate its floating effect, and then we'll just attack for game because we already have Lethal on board. So yeah, really cool deck. It's probably going to be what I will be playing for the foreseeable future. I have been just moving cards here and there, but this is what I end up with. So yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.